I've stared at crime scenes for 26 years, but nothing ever prepared me for the house on Birchwood Lane. It wasn't the blood, it wasn't the silence, it was the feeling. The kind of cold that doesn't touch your skin, but your spine. The kind that tells you something inside this place watched horrible things happen and said nothing. I stepped out of my unmarked car at 5:42 a.m., the sun not fully awake yet. Birchwood Lane was the kind of street people bragged about living on. Perfect lawns, fresh paint, morning joggers who waved even if they didn't know you. A community built on the illusion that evil doesn't visit neighborhoods like this. But evil had been living here, quietly, patiently, for years. The house belonged to Daniel Hale, 42 years old, single, friendly, the man neighbors described as helpful and a bit shy but very kind. He helped carry groceries, offered to mow lawns, rescued cats from trees. Every neighborhood has a Daniel, the harmless type, the type nobody suspects. Except every harmless man has secrets. Some secrets breathe, some secrets rot, some secrets kill. I crossed the police tape and walked toward the front door. Officers nodded at me but avoided eye contact. Always a bad sign. When young cops can't look at you, you know you're walking into something that will ruin your day, maybe your month. The smell hit first. Not death, not the fresh kind anyway. Something older, damp, chemical, metallic. A smell you only notice after years on the job. The smell of something someone tried to clean but couldn't. A smell that clings to the walls, to the carpet, to the bones of the house. I clicked on my flashlight, even though the living room lights were on. Habit. Some things you never unlearn. The house was too clean, perfectly organized, surfaces wiped down, furniture positioned with unnatural precision. Serial killers either lived like this or lived in chaos. Nothing in between. Extremes create patterns. Patterns create predators. A young officer approached me. Ortega. Good kid. Nervous eyes. Detective Reyes, you're gonna want to see the basement. They always say that, and they're always right. But something on the coffee table caught my attention first. A neatly arranged stack of photographs. Children, women, men, all smiling. Polaroids, old style. Something about the smiles, too stiff, too forced. The smile people give when they don't want to be in the picture. Where did you find these? I asked. Scattered on the floor when we arrived. Looks like someone tried to burn them in the fireplace but didn't finish. I picked one up. A teenage girl, maybe 17, blonde hair, forced smile. Her eyes were terrified, staring at whoever was behind the camera the way prey looks at a predator. I sealed the photo in an evidence bag. Basement? Now. We walked down the hallway. The air changed as we moved. Colder, heavier, like the house itself didn't want us going down there. Ortega switched on the basement light, and the world stopped. The room below us wasn't a basement. It was a chamber, a meticulously constructed underground lair. Cement walls painted black, a single metal table in the center, shackles, chains, tools arranged in neat surgical precision. A camera mounted on a tripod pointed at the table. A filming room, a torture room, a place designed by someone who rehearsed pain. I stepped forward slowly, letting my eyes adjust. The floorboards creaked under my weight. Old wood, worn down from years of pacing, struggling, dragging. I scanned the room. No dust, no clutter, no panic. Whoever used this space didn't rush. He took his time. He planned. "What do we have on Hale?" I asked. Ortega swallowed. "Nothing. Clean record, no arrests, quiet job at a distribution warehouse. Pays rent early. Neighbors say he's nice. The polite ones, the quiet ones, the ones nobody sees coming." I walked toward the table, scratches carved deep into the metal. Long lines, short, frantic ones, signs of resistance, signs of terror. Something shiny in the corner caught my eye. A necklace, small, silver, broken. A sunflower charm on the end, a child's necklace. My chest tightened for a moment, but I forced the emotion down. Feelings cloud your hands, cloud your vision, cloud your judgment. And judgment is the only weapon that keeps a detective alive. "Reyes," another officer called from behind a curtain. You really need to see this." I pulled the curtain aside. A wall of missing person posters staring back at me. Dozens of them. Teenagers, women, men. Newspaper clippings, printed flyers, screenshots from social media. A collage of ghosts. Every victim documented. Every disappearance connected. A timeline of his obsession. His trophies. And in the center of the wall, pinned with a single rusted tack, was a fresh photo. A young woman, late 20s, dark hair, brown eyes. The fear in her expression was unmistakable. The date on the back was from 2 days ago. 2 days, which meant she might still be alive, if we were fast enough, if he hadn't moved her, if he hadn't lost patience. "Where's Hale now?" I asked. Ortega shook his head. "Gone. No phone, car missing. Neighbors say they haven't seen him since Tuesday." My blood went cold. A missing predator is worse than a caught one. A missing predator is hunting. I dialed Captain Monroe. "We have a serial. Organized offender, multiple victims. We might have a live hostage. I need a task force assembled immediately." Monroe didn't speak for a few seconds. Then, "Are you certain?" "Positive." "Then I'll open the command center." I hung up and looked again at the girl's photo, the newest one. I made a silent promise. One I've made too many times, but never ignored.
"I will find you. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what he planned. I don't care what he thinks he is. I will bring you home." Even if she didn't have much time left. Even if he was already planning his next move. Birchwood Lane wanted to pretend evil didn't live here, but I'd seen its face, and I was going to drag it into the light.
Chapter 2. The call you can't unhear. The moment that call ended, the air inside the car felt heavier, like someone had sucked the oxygen out just to watch me react. I stared at the screen, unknown number, burning into my retinas, as if staring long enough could force it to reveal a name. It didn't. It never does. Killers like this don't leave breadcrumbs, they leave performances, and I was now part of the audience, whether I liked it or not. I started the engine, not because I had somewhere urgent to go, but because sitting still made me feel like a target. My rearview mirror suddenly looked less like a driving tool and more like a pair of watchful eyes. I kept checking it, half expecting to see someone in the back seat or a shadow slipping behind a tree. Nothing. Just empty darkness, but the kind of darkness that feels like it's hiding something. I drove to the precinct anyway, because that's what you do when a killer grabs you by the throat at 5 in the morning. You go to the one place where you can pretend you're in control. The building was half lit, half asleep, like everyone inside was fighting the same battle against exhaustion and cynicism. I walked through the glass doors, badge swinging, and tried to look like I wasn't carrying the weight of a murderer's breath in my ears. The night shift guy at the desk, Quinn, glanced up. "Rough one?" he asked. Could have lied, should have lied, but the truth pressed against my ribs. "It's going to get rougher," I said, and kept walking. In the briefing room, the big overhead lights buzzed like old fluorescent insects. I spread the crime scene photos across the table. Victim, cuts, message. The words glared at me from every angle. "I see you." The tech team arrived one by one, each reaction the same. A sharp inhale, a stiffening of the shoulders, that flicker of fear no one can hide completely. They all knew what it meant when a killer starts talking through corpses. It meant escalation. It meant intention. It meant we were dealing with someone who wanted to be seen, heard, understood, even admired. When the captain finally walked in, he didn't sit. He scanned the photos standing up, jaw clenched, hands gripping the back of a chair like he needed to hold on to something. "We're dealing with a showboat, somebody who thinks they're smarter than all of us combined." "They might be," I muttered without looking up. He ignored the comment, or pretended to. "Hale, your lead. You caught the call first. Start building a profile. Start digging into similar cases across the state, across the country if you have to. We're not letting some narcissistic freak play games in our city." Games. I hated that word, because it always implied someone was winning. After the meeting, I retreated to my office, a cramped box with peeling paint and a window that overlooked a brick wall. I liked the brick wall. It didn't stare back. I sat down, opened my notebook, and forced myself to write the first question that came to mind. What does he want? Killers like this don't carve messages for fun. They carve them to communicate, to challenge, to dominate. So what was he trying to tell me? That he was watching? That he chose the victim for a reason? That he chose me for a reason? I rubbed my eyes with the heel of my palms, but exhaustion wasn't the problem. The problem was that voice, or rather, the absence of it. The breathing on the phone, slow, intentional. Like he wanted me to feel it, like he wanted to crawl inside my head and find a place to nest. My office door creaked open, and Ortiz stepped inside, holding a stack of reports. "We got an ID on the victim," he said, dropping the papers on my desk. "Name is Dylan Merrick, 22. No priors, no drug history, no gang ties. College student. Clean as they come." Clean victims are the worst kind, because they don't lead anywhere. He was right. Nothing about the kid screamed target. "Family notified?" He nodded. "Father's on his way, mother's out of the country." I stood. Hard part of the job, maybe the hardest. But if you want answers, sometimes you have to dig through grief. When we met the father in the family room, he looked like someone had unplugged him from life. His shoulders sagged, his eyes were red-shot, not from crying, but from shock, like his mind hadn't accepted his own reality yet. I explained what we knew, carefully, vaguely, respectfully. But when I mentioned the message carved into his son, his expression shifted. Something flickered, something like fear mixed with recognition. "Message?" he repeated, voice trembling. "What message?" I hesitated, but he deserved the truth. It said, "I see you." The father's face drained even further, which I didn't think was possible. His hands gripped the arms of his chair. "He said that," he whispered, barely audible. "Who?" He swallowed hard. "Dylan. He said someone was watching him a week ago." My pulse kicked. "Did he tell you who?" "No, he
He thought he was imagining it, said he kept seeing the same car near his dorm, said he felt like someone was following him at night. Why didn't he file a report? He didn't want to seem paranoid. Paranoid. God, how many victims die because they don't want to seem paranoid? I thanked him, promised updates, and left the room with a storm building in my chest. Outside in the hallway, Ortiz exhaled sharply. So the victim knew he was being watched. Yes, I said, already piecing it together, which means the killer didn't pick him randomly. He stalked him, chose him, prepared him. We walked back toward the main bullpen, and I could feel eyes on me. Not real ones, but the phantom sort that crawl up your spine when your instincts scream that someone is closer than you think. The killer had been watching Dylan, and now the killer was watching me. When I reached my desk, my computer screen was on. I hadn't left it on. A single window was open. A video file. No label, no sender, no timestamp. Just waiting. Ortiz's voice cracked. Detective. I clicked play. The screen went black for 2 seconds. Then a grainy video flickered to life. A hallway. A dorm hallway. Empty. Silent. Then Dylan walked into frame, alive, looking over his shoulder like someone was breathing down his neck. He walked faster. Faster. Then the camera tilted as if someone holding it had leaned forward, zoomed in, followed. My stomach knotted. This wasn't security footage. It was handheld. The killer had filmed Dylan days before the murder. The video ended abruptly, fading into a single final frame. A message in white text on a black background. Do you see me? My blood ran cold.
Chapter 3. The Footsteps Behind You. The moment that message flashed on the screen, "Do you see me?" the entire bullpen fell silent, like someone had reached into the room and turned down the world's volume. Ortiz froze beside me, breathing shallow and fast. And even though the officers around us pretended to keep working, every single one of them felt the shift. Something had entered our space, something that wasn't supposed to. I stared at the final frame so long the words started to blur. Do you see me? No, I thought, not yet. But he saw us. He had walked into this building without stepping foot inside. That kind of access meant danger. It also meant intelligence and confidence. Always the confidence. I replayed the hallway footage in my mind, the way Dylan kept looking over his shoulder, the way the camera followed like a predator trailing its prey, patient and unhurried. The killer hadn't just watched him, he enjoyed watching him. And now he wanted us to enjoy it too. I closed the laptop with a snap that made Ortiz flinch. Pull every camera from Dylan's dorm, I ordered. Every exit, every hallway, every door. If this guy walked in, someone had to catch him. Ortiz nodded and sprinted off. I headed toward the evidence room to make sure the device that delivered this video was logged. But there was no device, no email, no trace. The file had appeared from nowhere, as if the killer had slipped through the wires like smoke. I leaned over my desk, gripping the edges so hard my knuckles whitened. Whoever he wasn't just bold, he was ahead. And killers who start ahead don't slow down. They escalate. The captain walked over, jaw tight. We need cyber to go through that machine. They can look, I said, but that file came from someone who knows exactly how to cover their tracks. Then we find the mistake they didn't think we'd look for, he said, but even he didn't sound convinced. Hours passed in a blur of motion and noise, officers running reports, analysts combing through footage, phones ringing, my brain working through the killer's moves like a chess puzzle with no start position. But then Ortiz rushed back in, breathless. Detective, you need to see this. He led me to the cyber lab. 3 monitors lit the room with a sick blue glow.
On the screen were time-stamped thumbnails from the dorm cameras, students walking, students entering rooms, nothing strange at first, but then Ortiz pointed at a time code, 2:13 a.m. The hallway stood empty until the lights flickered, only for a second, but when they came back, there was a figure at the end of the hall, hood up, head down, standing perfectly still like he'd been waiting for the electricity to return so he could be seen. "Where did he come from?" Ortiz whispered. "There's no door there." I stepped closer, zoomed in. The resolution wasn't great, but I could make out the edges of a mask beneath the hood, something blank, expressionless, a face with no face. The masked figure tilted his head just slightly, like acknowledging the camera. Then he walked forward, calm, slow, not hiding, almost performing. The hallway lights dimmed again as he passed beneath them. Then he stopped, in front of Dylan's door. He didn't knock, he didn't try the handle, he simply stood there for 13 full seconds, doing nothing. That stillness chilled me more than any movement could. Then he lifted his hand. Something hung from his fingers, a small object. The camera struggled to focus, then the image sharpened just enough. A key. He had a key. My heart dropped. That meant access. That meant planning. That meant this wasn't random. The masked man leaned closer to the door, pressing his ear against it as if listening to Dylan breathe on the other side. For a moment, he lifted his head, stepped back, and simply walked away, disappearing into a blind spot where the camera couldn't follow. Ortiz exhaled shakily. What the hell was he doing? I said, he was choosing. He was choosing the moment. I requested playback again, slower, looking for any small detail, any clue, any twitch of movement that could make him more human and therefore more catchable. Nothing. The killer was a ghost in a hoodie, a shadow pretending to be a person. I left the cyber lab with my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Every step echoed down the corridor like someone was following close behind me. I hated that feeling, hated giving him space in my mind. But that's how killers like him operate. They don't break into your home, they break into your thoughts. Back at my desk, I found something sitting neatly on the center of it, something that hadn't been there before. A photograph, printed, crisp, fresh. My throat tightened. It was a picture of me, taken inside the precinct, taken recently, taken without me ever noticing. I was sitting at the table hours earlier analyzing the crime scene photos, unaware a camera was pointed at me from somewhere close. Written across the bottom in red ink, "Now I see you too." My pulse hammered. I scanned the bullpen immediately. Faces, movements, anyone acting strange, but everyone seemed normal, or at least pretending to be. I turned the photograph over. Something was written on the back. A time. Tonight. Midnight. A location. The old overpass outside the city, a place known for drug deals, abandoned cars, and echoes of bad decisions. Ortiz stepped up behind me. "Detective, what is that?" I said, "An invitation," and the words tasted like metal. "You're not going alone," he insisted. "No," I said, "I'm not taking anyone. This is between him and me." Ortiz grabbed my arm. "Hale, this is exactly what he wants." "I know," I said, "and if I don't go, he'll pick someone else, someone unprepared." The truth was heavy, but necessary. Killers like this don't stop. They shift. If I don't respond, he'll move to another target just to get my attention. The overpass at midnight. A trap. A promise. A chance. Whatever waited for me there, I had no choice but to walk straight into it. Because this wasn't just a case anymore. It was a hunt. And the footsteps behind me were getting closer.
Chapter 4. Midnight on the Overpass. The overpass loomed above the empty highway like a dark blade slicing the night sky. I parked my unmarked car under a flickering streetlight and killed the engine, the silence pressing in on me like a living thing. My pulse was steady, trained, but every nerve in my body screamed alert. Every shadow seemed to twitch with intent. The photograph on my dashboard glared up at me. Overpass, midnight. No tricks, no false leads, at least not that I could see. I stepped out, hand resting lightly on the grip of my sidearm, even though my gut told me that bullets alone wouldn't solve this. The wind was sharp, cutting through my coat, carrying the scent of rusted metal and wet asphalt. I moved toward the concrete pillars of the overpass, each step measured, deliberate, ears straining for the slightest sound. And then I heard it, the softest click of footsteps behind me. I froze. My eyes scanned the darkness, flashlight useless in the open space. The footsteps stopped. A pause. A deliberate decision to wait. I waited longer, heart steady, muscles coiled like a spring. "Show yourself," I called, voice low but firm. Silence. Only the wind answered, or maybe the wind was whispering with him. Then a figure stepped from the shadows, hood pulled tight, face masked. Slow, confident, hands empty at first, but the posture screamed control. I could feel the predator's gaze, even without seeing his eyes. I had trained for moments like this, for adrenaline and fear to dance together until instinct took over. But nothing could prepare you for the calm of someone who wants to kill. "Detective Reyes," the voice finally came, muffled, almost theatrical. "You came." The calmness was worse than screaming. Calm means planning. Calm means he already knows the outcome. "I'm here, and you're done playing games." A laugh, soft, almost amused. "Games, no, detective. I'm teaching." His movement was sudden, a flash of motion as he lunged, and I reacted, stepping back, hand on the gun, instinct screaming. But he didn't attack with a knife. He swung a crowbar instead, not to kill immediately, but to intimidate, a calculated show of force. I blocked the swing with my forearm, feeling the sting as metal scraped against flesh. He struck again, precise, almost rhythmic, each strike testing my reaction, my nerves, my limits. Sweat ran down my temple, mixing with blood from a shallow cut on my forearm. I countered, swinging a flashlight, hitting him square in the side. He stumbled back slightly, but recovered instantly, landing silent, steady, unfazed. He wanted this to be a test, and I knew it. I lunged, aiming for the mask, trying to unbalance him. He twisted, avoiding my grip, and the crowbar came down again, grazing my shoulder. Pain shot through me, sharp, warning, igniting every fiber of awareness in my body. But I didn't back down, not now, not when he was this close. The wind howled across the overpass, carrying the faint sounds of the city below, indifferent to our struggle. A step, a pivot, a grunt. Metal clashed against metal. My mind ran faster than my body, calculating angles, anticipating strikes, countering, adjusting. I grabbed his wrist mid-swing, yanking the crowbar away. He cursed beneath the mask, and for a split second, his control faltered. Enough. I pressed forward, pinning him against the cold concrete. His mask shifted. I still couldn't see his face. But the smell, sweat, cheap soap, human intent, was real. "Enough," I growled. "Tell me where Dylan is or this ends badly for you." Silence, then a subtle laugh. "Do you want him alive or dead? That's the choice." Every fiber of my training screamed he wanted to manipulate me, wanted to force me to react. I tightened my grip. "Alive. You're going to tell me where he is, now." The crowbar clattered to the ground. He made no move to retrieve it, and I could sense a shift. He realized I wasn't just reacting. I wasn't panicking. I was calculating. He had underestimated me.
underestimating is the first mistake of every killer. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his hands, then pointed toward a dark passage under the bridge.
"If you want him alive, go there," he said, voice a whisper now, chilling. "But hurry, time isn't yours to waste." I didn't relax. I didn't let the instinct to attack fade. I just nodded, pressed him against the wall one last time to make sure he wouldn't follow immediately, then sprinted toward the shadowed passage. Every step was cautious, silent, yet fast. The darkness swallowed me, but I could hear the faintest sound of someone running behind me. Maybe not him, maybe the wind, maybe my own paranoia. Then, the faint sound of muffled voices. Dylan's voice. My pace quickened. I reached a chain-link gate leading to an abandoned maintenance tunnel. Locked, but a half-open panel allowed passage. I slipped through, heart hammering. And there he was, Dylan, crouched, hands tied, eyes wide with fear, staring at me like a lifeline just dropped from the sky. Relief surged, but I didn't allow it to bloom. Danger wasn't over. The killer was still out there. But for a moment, the terror shifted. I had Dylan, alive, breath ragged, skin pale, trembling. "I'm here. You're safe now. I've got you." He nodded, barely, tears forming, realizing someone had kept their promise. And somewhere above, on that overpass, I knew the killer was watching, calm, calculating, already thinking about his next move. But this time, I had the advantage of experience, instinct, and Dylan's survival. The first round was over, but the war had only begun. The morning after the overpass, the city felt different, like it knew something had shifted overnight and was holding its breath. I dropped Dylan off at a secure location with the task force, making sure he was safe, monitored, and ready to recount everything he remembered. Every word he spoke would be a lifeline, a breadcrumb in the dark labyrinth this killer had created. Once he was settled, I didn't return to the precinct immediately. I needed the streets, the alleys, the shadows. I needed to feel the city beneath my boots again. Intelligence could wait. Instinct could not. The overpass wasn't just a location, it was a message. It screamed, "I can reach anywhere and I can touch anyone." I moved through the early traffic, unnoticed, blending into the rhythm of the city waking up. Every corner, every flickering streetlight, every half-empty parking lot was potential evidence, potential surveillance, potential predator's playground. The first thing I did was check the video footage we had, over and over, looking for patterns, small details the killer might have left behind. His steps, his gestures, the way he held the crowbar, even the tilt of his head. Each motion was a signature. Signatures are vital. They're fingerprints for the mind. The techs at the precinct had been working all night, cross-referencing similar cases, abandoned buildings, missing persons reports, break-ins, anything that could connect to our ghost in the hoodie. And slowly, a picture emerged. He wasn't local. Not really. The precision, the timing, the calm in his execution, it screamed experience, mobility. He had studied not just his victims, but us. He knew how fast we reacted, how we thought. Every move we made, every precaution, he anticipated it. I pulled my coat tighter as the wind whipped down an empty alley. Concrete walls glistened with condensation. Trash bins rattled in the gusts. Somewhere distant, a dog barked, a siren wailed. And yet I felt his presence, like static on the edge of hearing. That's when it hit me. The message wasn't just in the actions, it was in the timing. Every step he took, every moment he revealed, was calculated to break down not just the victim, but the observer. And the observer in this case was me. I turned a corner and found a manhole cover slightly ajar. Nothing obvious, but the city teaches you things. Small details, overlooked, can be dangerous. I dropped the cover slightly with my gloved hand and listened. Silence, almost too perfect. Then a faint metallic scrape echoed beneath the streets. Someone had used the tunnel system. Someone had hidden, traveled, waited. The city became a labyrinth of potential escape routes, each more dangerous than the last. I noted every exit, every stairwell,
every forgotten passage. Someone who can vanish this well can strike anywhere. Back at the precinct, the captain waited, tapping his pen against the table. "Hell, what have we got?" I dumped a folder of collected reports and maps in front of him. "He's not just stalking, he's mapping. Every move is premeditated. The overpass wasn't the only trap, it's a pattern. He's teaching us how to predict him, then showing us we can't." The captain sighed. "So he's playing chess with us." "More like Go," I said. "Boundless options. We see one move, there are dozens more we can't even anticipate." Ortiz was already analyzing the city's surveillance grid. "There's another location," he said, pointing to a cluster of cameras near a construction site downtown. "High walls, minimal lighting, easy to control entry and exit. Could be a hideout." I nodded, mentally marking it. "Tonight we check it, quietly. No flashlights, no sirens. We move like shadows." The day crawled. Each hour stretched into eternity. Dylan's safety was monitored, the city continued its indifferent hum, and I kept reviewing footage, reports, interviews. A name emerged in the files. Victor Langan. Not confirmed, not directly connected, but some details matched. Prowling patterns, similar attacks in other states. I ran it past the captain. Possibly, but nothing concrete yet. We need him to make a mistake. Mistakes are rare with someone this meticulous. But I knew every killer leaves one eventually. Impatience, arrogance, or overconfidence. That was our thread. As night fell, the construction site came into focus. Empty, quiet, perfect. A place built to be hidden. I moved in alone at first, silent, crouched low, every instinct on edge. I scanned the perimeter, noting weak points, blind spots, shadows that could hide a man or a dozen. Then a faint movement caught my eye. On the scaffolding above, a figure shifted, hooded, masked, watching, waiting. The adrenaline surged. He had set the stage, and now he was performing again. I stayed low, moving along the edge, listening to the slightest sound, wind rattling scaffolding, a metal pipe vibrating, a distant car door slamming. My flashlight stayed off. I didn't need it. My eyes adjusted to shadows. I could feel him, calculating, knowing I was close. I whispered into my radio, barely audible. Eyes on the target. Possible entry from the east side. Ortiz's voice crackled back, calm but tense. Copy, back up in position. A plan formed. We would isolate him, cut off exits, force him to make a mistake. That's when the first attack came. A thin wire slicing across the path, barely visible, catching my sleeve. A warning. He knew I was close. And that's exactly what I wanted him to do. A trap always reveals itself when the hunter underestimates the prey. I gripped my weapon tighter, adjusted my position, and waited. The dance had begun. And this time, I intended to lead.
Chapter 6. The Echo in the Scaffold. The wire that sliced across my sleeve was more than a trap. It was a message carved in silence, a whisper from a killer who enjoyed orchestrating every detail. My pulse sharpened as I backed toward the shadows between two steel support beams. I heard the soft, rhythmic tapping above me, too precise to be wind. He was moving, not rushing, but gliding along the beams like he belonged there. I raised my radio again, murmuring, "He's above me. Move slow." Ortiz answered quietly, "Copy. North ladder secured." But even before he finished talking, I knew the killer had already mapped every route, every ladder, every escape plan we thought we had. I climbed the first row of metal supports, each step controlled, each breath measured. The faint smell of cold metal mixed with dust and industrial grease. Somewhere above, a boot scraped against steel. He wanted me to hear it. Hunters use noise to distract. Predators use it to guide. He wanted me to climb toward him, to reveal myself against the moonlight spilling through gaps in the unfinished ceiling. I reached the second platform when a small object rolled along the metal floor, a cylindrical, light, deliberate, a distraction grenade.
It released a piercing metallic blast that rattled the entire structure and forced my instincts to choose between retreat and retaliation. I dropped behind a concrete pillar as the sound vibrated through my skull. When the noise subsided, I saw movement again, this time closer. He was testing my reaction time, my focus, my fear. I steadied my breathing, pushed the noise from my mind, and shot a quick glance around the corner. Nothing, just shifting shadows. Then a voice, low, taunting, distorted by the mask. "You rushed last night, Hale." My muscles froze for a fraction of a second. He knew my name, he knew what we did under the overpass, and he knew where Dylan was. I stepped back into the shadows and whispered, "Show yourself." A soft chuckle echoed, bouncing against the steel beams. "You almost lost him. You'll lose more." I signaled to Ortiz and the team to converge, but before they reached the platform, a sudden clatter erupted from the opposite side of the structure. A decoy. He was controlling the pace like a conductor commanding an orchestra of chaos. I reached the top platform, scanning the beams, the drywall stacks, the tool carts, anything that could hide a full-grown man. Then I saw it. Fresh boot prints in the thin layer of dust leading toward the elevator shaft. I approached cautiously, weapon raised. The metal door was partially open. Inside, darkness swallowed everything. I leaned in just enough to see the faint outline of a cable swaying gently. A movement below. He was descending, without a harness, without fear. I cursed under my breath, sprinted to the nearest ladder, and climbed down as fast as my grip allowed. My boots slammed into the concrete at the bottom level just as the elevator shaft door rattled. Ortiz burst in through the main entrance with 2 agents, weapons drawn. "Where is he?" he barked. I pointed to the shaft. "He's using the tunnels again." But when we opened the access panel that led into the underground maintenance corridor, all that remained was a thin smear of grease on the handle and wet footprints fading into blackness. He was gone, vanished into the veins of the city. But he had spoken. He had watched me, and he had predicted every move. That meant one thing. He wasn't reacting to us. He was preparing for something bigger.
Chapter 7. The day he turned the city into a chessboard. Morning came with a strange heaviness, as if the city itself sensed the shift. The killer was no longer hiding in shadows, he was shaping them. Every report that came into the precinct told the same story. Someone had been watching apartment buildings, alleyways, hospitals, and suburban homes. No break-ins, no attacks, just surveillance. Like he was choosing, selecting. I stood at the evidence board, scanning maps marked with red dots. Sightings, movements, footstep patterns, video captures showing a hooded figure lingering at playgrounds, highways, train stations, warehouses. He wasn't scouting victims, he was scouting reactions. Our reactions. Dylan had been moved to a safer location, but even that felt fragile. The killer had made it clear he could reach anywhere, and the worst monsters weren't the ones who struck without warning. They were the ones who warned you and still couldn't be stopped. Ortiz approached with a fresh report. We cross-referenced every sighting from midnight to 6 a.m. His path loops in a perfect arc. I studied the map. He was circling the city, surrounding it, containing it. He's building a perimeter. Around what? Ortiz asked. Not what, I said. Who? The realization hit like a surge of electricity. He was isolating someone, not a random victim, someone specific, someone he wanted us to protect so he could break us by taking them. We ran through names, witnesses, former targets, investigators, informants. Then the captain entered the room, face pale. We just received a package. Packages never bring good news. The room went silent as he placed it on the table. Inside was a flash drive, a single USB with a sticker on it. Hale. My stomach tightened. I plugged it into the secure laptop. Static filled the screen, then switched to a video feed showing an apartment building. The camera zoomed slowly, intentionally, toward a window on the 4th floor. A little girl was drawing at a table, no older than 8, completely unaware she was being watched. A timestamp appeared. Tonight. Ortiz stepped closer. Who is she?
I swallowed hard. I don't know. And that terrified me more than anything. If she wasn't connected to the investigation, he was expanding his circle, choosing targets at random. Playback, I ordered the tech. They rewound the footage, frame by frame. That's when I saw it. His reflection faintly visible in the glass of the building opposite the girl's window. He had filmed this himself. He wanted us to know he was there. He wanted us to know the girl was next, and he wanted us to know we couldn't stop him. I zoomed further until the pixels distorted. His hood, his mask, that same emotionless stillness. But his left hand was visible this time, resting on the windowsill. A scar on the wrist. A long, thin one. Not random. Surgical. A signature. We need every unit on this. Find her. Secure the building. Now. Sirens lit the streets. Patrol cars flooded the area. But when we reached the apartment, the girl was gone. The window open. Curtains fluttering. A drawing on the table. A tall man in a mask standing behind a stick figure. A message scrawled in a child's handwriting. He said, "Don't scream."
The team froze. The air went cold. The killer hadn't just escalated, he had declared war. The entire building was placed on lockdown as officers swept every floor, every stairwell, every fire exit. Residents panicked, voices echoing through hallways thick with tension. I moved room to room, searching for any sign of struggle, any clue left behind. But the killer was too precise. He had taken her silently, efficiently, like he'd rehearsed it. Ortiz found the mother collapsed in the laundry room, crying hysterically, unable to form words. Shock, trauma. The killer had timed everything so she wouldn't hear, wouldn't know, wouldn't react. I knelt beside her, speaking softly. "Your daughter, what's her name?" "Maya," she whispered through tears. "She was just drawing. I just went for 2 minutes." 2 minutes. That's all he needed. 2 minutes to abduct a child from a 4th-floor apartment with police crawling across the city looking for him. That wasn't luck. That was mastery. I scanned the room again and noticed the smallest detail. Dust displaced, near the ventilation grate. I unscrewed it. Inside, tucked carefully in the opening, was a folded piece of paper. I opened it slowly. 2 words. Too late. Ortiz cursed under his breath. "He's taunting us." "No," I said. "He's directing us." The kidnapping wasn't random. It was a controlled escalation, a demonstration. And like everything else, he wanted us to chase him. We pulled building camera footage, street footage, dash cams, anything that might show how he got Maya out. Nothing. Not a shadow, not a silhouette. It was as if they vanished into thin air. But people don't disappear. They move. They leave traces. And killers like him always leave something subtle behind. Not a mistake, but a breadcrumb. I reviewed the drawing Maya left. The masked man, the little figure, both drawn in black. But behind them was something faint, almost erased. A rough square shape. A room? A door? A window? I enhanced the image digitally. The square became clearer. It wasn't a room or a window. It was a grate. A ventilation grate. I said, he used the old maintenance shafts, the ones sealed years ago. Ortiz looked stunned. How the hell does he know the city better than we do? Because he lived in its shadows. Because he had been preparing. We descended into the building's maintenance level, flashlights cutting through stale air and old machinery. The tunnels were narrow and lined with decaying pipes, exactly the kind of place he thrived in. Far inside, we found footprints, small ones, Maya's. The killer's prints beside hers, keeping close, guiding her deeper. A faint sound echoed through the tunnels. A child's whimper. Distant. Weak. "Maya!"
I shouted. The tunnels carried my voice in a distorted howl. Then a different sound echoed back. A single metallic clang. A warning. Ortiz grabbed my arm. He's playing with us. This could be a trap. Everything he does is a trap, but we're going. We followed the faint noise deeper until we reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3. Left, right, straight ahead. And in the dirt at the center was a small object. Maya's bracelet. Pink. Plastic. Deliberately placed. I crouched and studied the floor. Tiny indentations. Drag marks. He had moved her, but which way? Then I saw it. The faintest trace of a shoe sole heading down the left tunnel. We moved in with weapons ready. The air grew colder, the tunnel narrower, the darkness thicker. Then we saw it, a small figure sitting against the wall. Maya, alive, crying quietly. I rushed to her, kneeling, checking her breathing, her pulse. She clung to me desperately. He said you would come. He said you're the only one who can follow. That's when I realized she wasn't the prize. She was the bait.
Chapter 9. The Man Behind the Mask. We carried Maya out of the tunnels carefully, shielding her from the chaos above. She was shaken, but unharmed, physically at least. But her eyes told a different story. Wide, glassy, lost. She kept repeating the same words. He watched me sleep, over and over like a broken record. At the precinct, medics examined her while the child psychologist tried to coax answers. She wouldn't speak at first, wouldn't make eye contact. But when I entered the room, she lifted her head slowly and pointed at me. She said, "He told your name." A cold shiver crawled up my spine. Did he say anything else? She nodded. He said he used to be like you. Ortiz and the psychologist exchanged looks. Like me, how? I asked. She said, a watcher, a protector. My pulse froze. A protector, a watcher, someone who learned the system not to obey it but to break it, someone trained, someone who understood police procedure intimately, someone who knew how to move unseen, how to manipulate investigations, how to stalk without leaving evidence, someone who had once stood on my side of the line. My mind raced through old files, old coworkers, old cases, anyone who had disappeared, been dismissed, discharged, gone rogue, but no clear face emerged. Maya reached inside her pocket and handed me something. Metal. Cold. A badge fragment. Not a full badge, just the lower corner, broken cleanly at the diagonal. The serial number was scraped off. My stomach dropped. The killer had once carried authority. The captain stormed into the room. We found something outside the tunnels. We followed him down to evidence where a plastic bag was laid out on the table. Inside was a burner phone. A single message displayed on the screen. Turn around. That was all. No threats, no riddles. Just 2 words with enough power to freeze the room. Ortiz grabbed the device. Where was this found? On a bench, the text said. Less than 50 feet from where you exited with the girl, meaning he was close. Watching. Always watching. I turned the phone over, examining its casing. Under the battery was a tiny sticker with numbers printed on it. GPS coordinates. I entered them into the map. A location flashed on the screen. A derelict asylum on the outskirts of the city. Abandoned for 15 years. No cameras, no residents, no security. A graveyard of silence. He's leading us there, Ortiz said. Yeah, I replied, because that's where the truth is. Before we left, I checked on Maya one last time. She grabbed my sleeve tightly. He said the mask hides the scars. I froze. What scars?
She touched her wrist in a long, straight line, the same scar I saw on his hand in the video. That was confirmation. This wasn't random. This was personal. The asylum waited like an opened wound, and somewhere inside, the man behind the mask was preparing for the final act.
Chapter 10. The Last Room. The asylum stood like a skeleton against the night sky. Windows shattered, walls cracked, graffiti carved like wounds into its decaying structure. The wind moaned through broken vents, carrying the smell of mildew, rust, and something darker. Ortiz and I approached with weapons drawn, flashlights off. We didn't need to announce ourselves. He already knew we were here. Every step echoed across the empty courtyard. The building loomed over us, its doors hanging crookedly, as if trying to warn us to turn back. But I stepped inside without hesitation. The long hallway stretched before us, littered with broken tiles and scattered debris. Faded medical posters curled along the walls like dead leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a metallic thud echoed. Not random, deliberate, like a bell calling us forward. "Hail," Ortiz whispered. "This is a trap." Of course it is, but we go anyway. We moved deeper, passing rusted wheelchairs, overturned gurneys, and rooms with peeling paint and abandoned files scattered across the floor. The asylum was a maze, each corridor leading to another fork, another shadow, another dead end. Then a faint light flickered at the end of the west wing, a single bulb hanging from a wire. Beneath it stood a chair, and on the chair, another package. I opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph. Me, from years ago, standing beside another officer. I hadn't seen him in nearly a decade. Tall, intense, unsettling even back then. Agent Marcus Hale. My brother. The air vanished from my lungs. Ortiz saw my expression. "Hale, you okay?" He isn't after Dylan. He isn't after a random child. He's after me. The next photograph showed Marcus wearing a training uniform, bulletproof vest, eyes cold even then. On the back was written, "You left me." My chest tightened. Memories flooded in, Marcus being dismissed after a violent incident he blamed on the department. An investigation, a mental breakdown, disappearance, no trace, no closure. "He wants a reunion," Ortiz said. "No," I whispered. "He wants revenge." A sudden crash tore through the hallway. A door slammed open somewhere deep inside the asylum. We sprinted toward the noise, turning a corner into a room lined with rusted beds and shattered glass. In the center, illuminated by a shaft of moonlight, stood Marcus, mask off. The same scar running down his wrist, the same cold eyes, but twisted now, filled with hatred sharpened over years. "Hello, brother," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. "I knew you'd follow. You always follow." I raised my weapon slowly. "Marcus, you don't have to do this." He laughed quietly. "Don't I? You abandoned me. The department erased me. You moved on, and I rotted in the dark while you lived in the light." Ortiz circled behind, but Marcus lifted a detonator. One more step, and this place becomes a memorial." I froze. "What do you want?" He stepped closer, eyes burning. "I want you to feel what I felt. The fear, the confusion, the betrayal. You hunted me for years without knowing it. Now you will finish it." He placed the detonator on the table. "Only one of us leaves." The air thickened. Time slowed. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. "You're sick. Let us help you." "Help? Where was your help when I screamed for it?" He reached for something on the table. A weapon. In a split-second reaction, I fired.
The shot echoed through the asylum. Marcus staggered, dropping the weapon, collapsing to his knees. His eyes softened, not in forgiveness, but in tragic recognition. You finally did it. You finished what they started. He fell forward, lifeless. The detonator slipped from his hand, clattering harmlessly to the floor. Ortiz caught my arm as I swayed. Hale, it's over. But as I stared at my brother's body lying on the cold asylum floor, I realized something chilling. This wasn't victory. This wasn't closure. This was the end he had chosen for both of us. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that maybe the hunt wasn't over. Maybe it had only just begun.